Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we are unpacking something incredibly powerful and honestly pretty life-changing. We're going to dive into a deeply reflective message drawn from a homily by Father Joel Jamarsis Gattus. It's a message that tackles those inevitable moments in life when we just feel completely depleted, and it does so using one of the most fascinating botanical metaphors you'll ever come across, the Rose of Jericho.
So let me ask you a question right off the bat. Have you ever felt your hope just dry up? I really want you to let that sink in for a second. We all hit a wall sometimes, right? You might be dealing with severe exhaustion, deep burnout, or maybe you're feeling like you literally have nothing left to give. Not to your family, not to your career, not even to yourself. Your emotional tank is just running on empty. And listen, if that resonates with you right now, your feelings are incredibly valid. It's heavy. But as we'll see today, that feeling of total depletion, it is absolutely not the end of your story. To figure out how to navigate these intense moments of burnout, we actually have to look at nature.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The Rose of Jericho.
Meet the Rose of Jericho. Now, in its dormant state, this thing looks like a crumpled, crispy ball of dead leaves. It appears entirely lifeless. Seriously, there is not a single hint of green or vitality to it. You would probably walk right past it in the desert, thinking it's completely a goner. But the miracle of this plant is that when it is exposed to just a little bit of water, it completely transforms. It unfurls, turns this beautiful lush green, and practically springs back to life. It's absolutely astonishing to witness, like a giant puzzle coming together.
And this brings us to a profound realization, a quote from the homily. A dry plant does not mean it is dead. This right here is the core anchor of our explainer today. Just because the Rose of Jericho is sitting in a long period of silence, all shriveled up in the harsh desert, doesn't mean its life is over. It is simply dormant, it's waiting. And Father Goddess brilliantly maps this physical, botanical reality directly onto our human experience. A period of silence or a lack of progress in your own life, it does not signify the end of your hope.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 2, the dried up heart.
Father Gaddis points out that honestly, a lot of us are walking around feeling exactly like that shriveled, dormant Rose of Jericho. And we experience this dryness in very specific, often painful ways. Maybe it's a dry marriage where that spark feels completely gone. It could be dry family relations, perhaps a really tough fracture between a parent and a child. Maybe it's a dry faith, where you just feel totally disconnected from your spirituality right now. Or perhaps you're holding on to dried up dreams because of repeated setbacks. People carry these massive, heavy burdens every single day, sending them messages of sheer exhaustion and making them feel like they are hopelessly stuck.
But here is where the perspective completely shifts. The homily tells us, some graces are sometimes wrapped in our pains and problems. The crucial point is this: what if the very things causing you pain, the struggles, the failures, the deep emotional dryness, are actually the exact delivery mechanisms for grace? I know, it's a shocking theological concept, but sometimes it's literally only through failure that we finally learn to trust. It's only through sickness that we learn to pray or simply slow down. The dry desert is exactly what prepares the plant for the miracle of the rain.
So let's explore where this dryness comes from in Section 3, Wounds of the Spirit.
Father Gaddis notes this really fascinating detail in the Gospel. When a paralyzed man was brought to Jesus, Jesus didn't immediately jump to heal his legs. Instead, he forgave the man's sins and told him to take courage. Now, why would he do that? Well, because physical wounds are visible, right? We have medicine and doctors for those. They're generally easier to treat. But spiritual wounds, the internal paralysis caused by fear, deep guilt, or past mistakes, those require a much deeper, far more profound healing. Jesus prioritized the man's heart over his legs because internal wounds are just way more complex to mend than physical ones.
And this brings us to a harsh but super necessary truth. True paralysis is not always in the body. Sometimes it is in the mind and heart. You might see someone who looks perfectly healthy on the outside. They might be wealthy, successful, showing up to work every day with a smile. But inside, they might be entirely paralyzed. Paralyzed by anxiety, crushed by unspoken anger, or trapped in a continuous loop of past mistakes, completely unable to move forward. Their heart is exactly like that Rose of Jericho in the desert, completely shut tight. But if we want to break out of that internal paralysis, we have to take specific actions. We have to actively participate in our own revival. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. Let's look at Section 4, Steps Toward a Miracle.
The homily outlines a really clear, step-by-step roadmap for this revival. First, you have to acknowledge your weakness. You've got to admit that you're in a dry season. Second, let others help you. Think back to the gospel story. The paralyzed man couldn't walk, so his friends carried him. If you are too weak to walk right now, allow the faith and love of your family and friends to carry you forward. Please don't push them away. Third, you must stand up. And fourth, you must carry your mat.
Let's unpack that third step for a second. Stand up. The message here is incredibly empowering. God will help you, but you need to help yourself. Faith absolutely has to be paired with effort. A miracle isn't just a magic trick, it requires your active participation. If you want a broken relationship to heal, you might just need to be the first one to apologize. If you want to get out of debt, you have to start paying it off slowly and actually change your spending habits. If you're sick, by all means pray, but also go to the doctor and take your medicine. You have to stand up.
Then we reach the final instruction given to the healed man. Pick up your mat and go home. Now think about this for a second. Why on earth would Jesus tell a newly healed man to lug around this dirty, old bed that he had been stuck on for years? It seems completely useless, right? It's heavy. It's a literal reminder of his absolute worst days.
But there is a brilliant, beautiful meaning behind this. The former sign of defeat is now evidence of victory. God doesn't just erase our past struggles, our weaknesses, or our scars. Instead, He transforms them. The very thing that used to carry you in your weakness is now the thing you carry to show off God's power. Your past failures literally become your greatest testimony. And this brings everything full circle back to our central botanical analogy, the Rose of Jericho.
Which leads us to our final part today. Section 5, the drop of grace. To really cement this idea of transformed weakness, Father Goddess gives us 3 incredibly famous real-world examples. Take Andrea Bocelli. He lost his sight, a massive, life-altering vulnerability. Yet his voice now inspires millions globally. Then there's Michael Jordan. He was notoriously cut from his high school varsity team, but he pushed through that rejection and failure to become the greatest basketball player of all time. And J.K. Rowling? She was deeply depressed, dealing with intense personal hardship and debt before she ever penned Harry Potter. All of them experienced intense dryness, deep failure, and what looked like a complete dead end. But they persevered. They picked up their mats.
Which leads directly to you. If you take away anything from today, remember this. Your story isn't over. As long as you have breath, God has a plan for you. If you are incredibly tired right now, then rest. Take a break. But whatever you do, do not quit. Don't believe the lie that your current dry season is a permanent state. The Rose of Jericho can sit out there in the scorching desert for years, but it is never truly dead. It is just waiting.
And here is exactly what it is waiting for. Just one drop of grace, and you will live again. Just like that seemingly lifeless plant, it only takes a single drop of water, a single drop of grace, a slight shift in perspective, a moment of help from a friend, to initiate a complete and total revival in your life. So I'll leave you with this question to think about today. Where might that drop of grace be waiting for you right now? And are you willing to let it revive you? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to explore our next topic with you.